Shalom, it's about 12:15 a.m. It is the day after Pentecost. Yesterday, well, Saturday, rather, the day before yesterday now, we had our normal Shabbat service, 10 a.m. It was kind of our Pentecost service, and then we had our Pentecost worship night that evening. Worship past the sundown into the time of Pentecost. And, today or yesterday at this point, right, we had our community giveaway. And during the community giveaway, we had one guy. He came up and he told us, man, he had lost his job and he hadn't gotten any money in over a month. It was him and his daughter, and he just said, man, my life's been so hard. This little giveaway that you're doing, this little food, we gave out hot dogs and hamburgers, beef, hot dogs and hamburgers, and it just blessed his life. That 50 some odd cent hamburger, that 25-cent hot dog, and some 50-cent buns. It's $2, $3 meal, bag of chips, drink, whatever. Maybe get up to $3, $3.50, whatever it may have cost us to put it together. And it just changed his life. Had another guy come up and tell us, his house had burned down. He had lost everything, and his family was just getting back on its feet. And so many other people who showed up, and it really puts life into perspective. And it kind of puts your spirit in a certain place where you have to look back on what God has done for you in your life and be very grateful. I've experienced a lot of things in life. I've been to a lot of places. I've done a lot of things. And while I'm worried about very small things, how do I grow my business? How do I grow Nazarene Remnants? How do we grow altar doers? When is my son coming? As I think about the things that I consider to be problems in life, compared to people that have real problems in life, real issues that they're going through, I think how much God has blessed me in ways that I cannot comprehend. And I would tell all of you to think about ways that God has blessed you that you cannot comprehend. Now, maybe these two situations, because I've been in a similar situation as a young man with his daughter, right? When it was me and my mother, we've had days where it was hard for us to find something to eat, me, my mother, and my sister. But I'll give you another situation that most of us haven't been in. Some of us may have been in, but most of us haven't been in. Another young man came up, or older man came up, and he asked me, "Do you want something to eat?" We gave him something to eat. He went inside, he ate. And, while we're speaking to the man, he says, "Yeah, man, I saw y'all at church one Saturday, but I didn't want to come in." The man said he didn't have any clean clothes. He hadn't had a bath in a while, so he thought it may be a little smelly. Now imagine being in a position where you can't find a bath, right? You don't have any clean clothes, and you're afraid to come into the house of God to get the help that you need because you think you may smell a little rancid. Imagine being in that position. Some of you won't get up to go to service just because you don't want to. Some people won't get up and watch out their doors just because you don't feel like getting out of the bed. This brother wanted to come into the place of God, but didn't because he did not have any clean clothes. Put your life into perspective. Look at the way in which God has blessed you to just have somewhere to stay, and to just have something to eat, and to just have a job that you hate to go to, and to just have clean clothes and water to take a bath. Put it into perspective. And today it definitely put it into perspective for me exactly how much God has done in your life that you may overlook. Your problems may seem large, they may seem huge, they may seem like they're insurmountable. And it's always an issue that comes up. There are people with worse issues in the world than you. And I knew this already, but today shows it in real time. And that's why it's so important, guys, for us to do what the overseer James and the Messiah himself tells us to do, and get out into our community to give back. One, because we owe it. All right. The problem with the young rich ruler, if you read in the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew, as quoted by Jerome, when it comes to the story of when the Messiah told the man, good master, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Why do you call me good? No one is good but one, that is God. But if you want to enter into eternal life, sell all you have and give to the poor. He says, if you want to enter into life, keep the commandments. And the young man said, I've kept all these commandments from my youth. But the Messiah could understand. The Messiah already saw through the man's heart and saw that he had not been keeping the commandments from his youth, because there was one that he lacked. The one that says, love your neighbor as yourself. One of the two greatest commandments to say about the Messiah. Number one greatest commandment, Deuteronomy 6:4, 6:5. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your mind, and your soul. Second, like unto it, Leviticus 19:18, is to love your neighbor as yourself. And the young rich ruler saw his brothers, the Israelites, in a destitute situation, but could not help his brother, the Israelites. So he did not love his neighbor as himself. It is imperative, guys, that we go out into the community and help. One, because we're obligated to love our neighbor as ourselves. As the overseer James tells us, you can't see a brother that's in need and tell the brother God is with you, but don't take care of the needs he has in that day. That shows your faith is dead. It has no works. But also, guys, it gives you grounding. It helps you to understand everything that God is doing for you in your life, how your situation isn't as bad as you may think it is. Your situation, someone would die to be in your situation. I remember me and my wife was speaking, was driving home, and you'll say, man, I would love this car. And then you think, man, somebody would just be happy to have any car. And you see the guy on the bike and you say, man, I want to see tired of riding that bike. Well, it's somebody who's walking who just wish they had a bike, right? And then you see the guy who's walking and you say, well, there's somebody who's paralyzed who just wishes he could walk one more time, right? And then you get the guy who's paralyzed, but he can still use his hands. And there's one guy who wishes he could even just use his hands ever again in his life. And for the guy who can use his hands, there's one guy who's dead. And he just wishes he had one more day to spend time with his family and get right with God. A premise of the story is, guys, you're never in as bad of a situation as you may believe that you're in. But sometimes it takes seeing that situation to understand how blessed you are and how much God has done in your life. So I would implore everyone to think back on this. We're thinking about releasing some videos. I'm gonna put this out on my personal page, and I'll probably tag Nazarene Remnants. But another thing that bothered my spirit is, I hear so many stories of people coming into the faith with such a fervor for God. They come into the faith with such a want and a will to really do the things of God, and someone tries to pull them away from it. I think that's wickedness. And we're going to the video, right? How the most couple videos. I'll tell you a couple of them. Right? We're going to release one that the most Protestant thing you can do is keep the laws of God. It ties directly into another video we're going to do about how Rome and everything that comes from Rome is the beast, is the Antichrist of Daniel 7:25. Right? It's the one who sought to change the times and the laws and the ways of the Most High God, and who oppressed the saints of the Most High for time and time a half. Now, every major branch of Christianity that you see, with some exceptions, but every major branch of Christianity that you see is somehow connected to Rome, right? Or even the Oriental. Shout out to the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, but even them at some point broke off from Rome. The Coptic, all the Orientals, Coptics and Armenians broke off from Rome. The Eastern Orthodox Church broke off from Rome, or Rome broke. Either way, it was Rome where it came from. Whether you want to say the Orthodox broke off or the Catholics broke off, and then especially Protestant, especially Reformer Protestants break off from Rome even there, and they still have a lot of Roman tendencies that leads people away from the times and the ways of the Most High God. Ask yourself, why does the entire Christian world celebrate Christmas? It's ubiquitous at this point. But most of them have no idea what the Feast of Tabernacles is. Why is Easter a staple, but the Passover isn't? Why is the Passover celebrated on the day, or why is Easter or Pascha celebrated on the day celebrated on when the Bible and Polycarp tells celebrated on the 14th of Nisan? Why can you speak to a believer that sees the Messiah kept? He went to Jerusalem during the Feast of Dedication, and they have no earthly idea when the Feast of Dedication is. Why do the biblical holy days of God? The Apostle Paul says Christ is the first fruits of those risen from the dead, but you wouldn't know what first fruits is if someone told you. All right, when Paul says, let us keep the feast, but not with the old leaven, you have no clue what the Feast of Unleavened Bread is. Why is this the case in the body today? Why is it such a hard thing for you to convince a believer that the Bible tells you there are certain foods that are there are certain meats that are for food and certain meats that aren't for food? Why are the people who will set Paul directly against the Messiah? Why are there so many issues today in what we will call modern Christianity, or I will call it churchianity? Shout out to For the Love of Yah. Why do we have these problems and these issues? Why do they exist? Why does a Christian life look nothing like the Messiah's life? The Messiah kept the feast of Passover. The Messiah kept the feast of unleavened bread. He kept the feast of first fruits. He kept the feast of weeks, or Shavuot, Pentecost. He kept the Day of Atonement. He kept the feast of trumpets. Right? He kept the feast of tabernacles. He kept the 8th day. He kept the feast of dedication, as we see in the Gospel of John. So why doesn't a believer's life look this way? He walked according to the laws of God. Why doesn't a believer's life look this way? He read his Bible. He read the prophet Isaiah. He read the laws of God. He meditated on them day and night, as Psalms tell us to. So why doesn't a believer's life look this way? Why does our life look foreign to the one in which we claim to follow? And why do we think it's okay for our life to look foreign to the one that we claim to follow? Listen, guys, this faith isn't designed for it to be easy for you. This faith isn't designed for it to be the easiest thing that ever happened, but it's designed to put you in line with the will of God. And I think a lot of us over time have forgotten, or may never even knew, that the faith is designed to put you into the will of God. There's a reason why your life doesn't go the way you want it to go. And it's because you refuse to rely on yourself with the laws of God. Romans 8, read Romans 8. I'm missing the verse right now. But it says the reason why you're hostile to God, you're in enmity with God, is because you refuse to submit to God's law. And as long as you live in the flesh, you cannot submit to God's law. Modern churchianity teaches you not to submit to God's law. Do you know what the Torah says? The Torah that the Messiah studied, the Torah that the Messiah gave. What does it say that you should do with a person who tries to convince you not to keep God's law? The Bible tells us that if a prophet, Deuteronomy 13 tells us, if a prophet comes to you, even if all of his prophecies come true, and even if he does signs and wonders amongst you, but he teaches you to go against the laws of God, you should hit him upside the head with rocks until he's no longer alive. But for some reason, people believe that the Apostle Paul or the overseer James or Peter or the Messiah himself came and was that Deuteronomy 13 prophet that taught you to go against the laws of God. Well, why would the Messiah leave you with no example? The Messiah is our example for how to live, and the Messiah walked according to the laws of God. The Bible tells us he was a spotless lamb. So did the Messiah leave us with no example of how we should live life as a so-called Christian? The answer is no. The definition of the word itself, the reason why the word comes up is they're saying you follow Christ, you're a little Christ. That's the word Christian. So if the word Christian means little Christ, why wouldn't you live in that manner? How do you just say, I don't want to do what Christ did? I think this presents a huge problem. We're going to release more videos about it. But you don't know how many people we speak to, man, who come into the faith of the Messiah with such a fervor for following God, not out of fear, not out of compulsion, but out of pure love for what they've seen the Messiah do in their life. You know, how many times I hear and see and watch people get pulled away from the truth of God into a lie, into a falsehood that came from Rome, and it's an early falsehood. Guys, everything that's old doesn't mean it's correct. That makes sense? Just because something is old doesn't mean it's correct. There can be a very old tradition that's horribly wrong. Remember, the Apostle Paul says this, and don't worry, catch the lessons. The Apostle Paul says, all the churches in Asia have turned against me. The Apostle Paul says, the spirit of anomia, of the lawless one, is already at work today. The overseer John, the Apostle John, tells us that the spirit of lawlessness was already at work in the church in his time. There are very old traditions that come from the same time as the apostles that are just wrong traditions, and that's what we try to correct. That's what the pronomian Nazarene faith tries to correct, a correct reading of Paul. A reading of Paul when we see Romans 14:1, where Paul says, do not mess with a brother over disputable matters, over his opinions. And we understand that the laws of God are not opinions. When we read Colossians 2:16, when Paul says, let no man judge you in food or in drink or in respect of a feast day or a new moon or a Sabbath, for these things are a shadow of things to come, but the body that cast them belongs to Christ. We also read verse 8 and verse 22, where the Apostle Paul tells you he's talking about the commandments and doctrines of men, right? Or a Christianity that doesn't skip over Romans 7, where the Apostle Paul tells you the law is holy, just, and good, and that he serves the laws of God with his mind. Where has this apostolic tradition went? And the answer is the church that won, the church that ended up with the force because of the emperor, so-called Emperor Constantine. that church decided an antinomian faith was a better faith. This is why Constantine writes his infamous statement that we quote all the time: let us have nothing in common with the detestable Jewish crowd. This is why the Council of Nicaea didn't even give, watch this, the Council of Nicaea didn't even give a date for when Easter, as is known now, Pesach, their version of Passover, should be kept. It just simply said, adhere to the church in Rome. Whatever the church in Rome does, that's what you should do. The Council of Laodicea took God's Sabbath, his holy day, his day of rest, and said, now we're going to make the day of rest Sunday, when nothing in the Bible tells you to make the day of rest Sunday. This is why you don't see a correct interpretation of the Apostle Paul, and this is why we do so much work. We do so much work to restore faith to what it should be, a first century, a true first century faith, and not just the first century faith, but the first century faith of the apostles of Christ and Christ himself. And thank God we have this. Thank God we had the Bible to lead us back to the place in which we should be. This is the word that God preserved for us to be able to see exactly what he wants from us and to walk in it. But shalom, man, I just had to get that off of my heart. I wasn't going to be able to sleep until I got it off. I hope you enjoyed this video. We're going to post it on my personal page and probably put Nazarene remnants in it. Guys, if you want to help out the church for us to do more, you can go to altardoers.com, click the give button. All right. The Cash App is going to be #altardoers. If you need to give with a card, you can give on there. It also support Nazarene remnants. We got some merch for sale if you want to buy that. God bless you guys. I appreciate everything that you do. I appreciate watching this video. 2 things I'll say. 1, be aware of your situation. Do not think that your situation is worse than anyone else's, because I can find you someone whose situation is worse than yours. Number 2, stick to the faith once delivered to the saints, as the overseer Jude tells us. Stick to the faith once delivered by the saints. Stick to the faith that tells you to actually walk like Christ in everything, in the way that you treat people, in the way that you do business, in the way that you love your spouse, in the way that you love your family and take care of your friends, in the way that you eat, in the way that you celebrate, in the way that you walk. Be fervent. I'll tell y'all something else. It actually convinced me, right, when I'm going through these things. You know, I'm actually a pretty lax guy when it comes to certain things, but it definitely convinced me to be more firm. I'll be completely honest. When I see someone pushing people away from a true gospel, from a true commitment to the lifestyle of Christ, it makes me be more fervent for my position. It gives me more zeal for the Messiah. It gives me more Revelation 14:12. Here is the patience of the saints, those who keep the commandments of God and the faith in Jesus Christ. It makes me say, yeah, maybe not. Maybe even though there's no harm in Christmas, there's an unintended harm because it cedes to the power of Rome. It makes me consider it. I'm not saying that's a dogma of mine now, but it definitely makes me consider it. It makes me think, yeah, maybe Sunday worship is actually bad just because it cedes to the power of Rome. It makes me consider certain positions in which I try to be ecumenical. I'm not confident that ecumenicism is the best route to take anymore. Even I'm never going to give up the phraseology of pronomian Christian, because I believe those are true followers of Christ. But to make a sharper distinction between us and what the modern Christianity teaches may be absolutely necessary to reverse ourselves from this position. Because as much as you try to preach that it may be okay to go to certain places and to learn certain things, you don't really know how bad the teaching are at certain places, and maybe you do just need to stay away from it. But that requires us to put a lot more altar doors locations and a lot more pronomian Nazarene doctrine and sheets all over the place. So that's what we're going to work towards. You can help us do that by donating to Altar Doors Church. You can also cash up Nazarene if you want. It's money Nazarene Remnants. Help us to be able to push this out to the 4 corners of the earth because it's necessary for the body of believers and it's necessary for the world. Daniel says that they wore out the saints for time and a half. The saints were delivered into their hand. We don't know what that slotted amount of time is. We can try to put math with it, but I don't do the math. I just say that's for a certain appointed amount of time. Most High willing that appointed time is coming to an end, and it's going to be Nazarene remnants who helps it comes to an end. All right, guys, but shalom. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope it blesses you in one way, shape, form, or fashion, or another. Check us out. We'll be back Tuesday, 10 a.m., Nazarene Remnants. I'm trying to get a Facebook up too, but right now, YouTube, we're there. And TikTok, of course. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.